Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back everybody.
Please do subscribe both channels over on Evolutionary Arts. We were talking of the presidential warning that came out of one of the EU countries and was talking about what could be happening shortly. You know, again, there are great changes afoot. Absolutely. And over on EEARTS, the crisis actors wanted for, guess what, September 24th. Oh boy, here we are. Today is September 23rd, and we are so close to so many things happening. It was a very, very busy night for us. We were up most of the night, really. But this is par for the course, as this is often when we do get messages that come through of a significant nature. And before we get into this, just to recap for anybody that is new to the channel, Cindy is very, very gifted channel in many different ways. She's shaking her head, but yes, she is. This is just who she is. It has to do with past lives because we do live many lives. Typically, and in some cases, some of us have lived thousands or 10,000s of lives or more. Again, we are consciousness itself. Consciousness can't really be created or destroyed. It is something that just goes through different forms, different vehicles, different explorations, different learning opportunities. And so this is all in so many ways a giant school that we're going through. And yes, it seems like it might be a little harsh at times. Absolutely. Well, that's part of the experience, and that's part of the nature of things. If we knew that we were in this existence and this was really all about learning and exploration, and that maybe the stakes were not as high as we think it is when we're in the body. And I don't want to trivialize anything because, again, as we experience everything that's going on, the trauma that can be imprinted on the soul is very, very real. Absolutely. But we have to understand the bigger picture, and what we want to try to help to understand the bigger picture. And that is that we are eternal consciousness itself, having a temporary experience as a human in these death throes of a Kali Yuga, of a dark age.
So let's keep in mind when we're going through rough times like this, just as the pendulum is going to swing really far in a very difficult way, remember, we're waiting for the swing for it to go very, very far in a positive direction.
And so much of this information that we share with you guys comes directly from our guides, comes from conversations with our guides. As with Cindy and I, our spiritual practices are the most important things to us. So our daily practices and staying connected with those in higher densities is the very most important thing, and it's top of the list for us. And doing this job that we're doing here is the whole reason why we're here. And so some are here to help others in this time. Many of you that are listening, you're actually here as a volunteer to help others in this time.
I know, and sometimes it might be like, I really, really chose this. Did I really, really choose this? And you kind of shake your head and you step back and like, oh my gosh, how is this happening?
Absolutely. So it's not really giving you so much hearsay. And when we quote things, we quote things just so you could go and look and explore on your own. If we're going to look at some other sources and what they've said about things. But we always go at what resonates with us and what we have gotten directly. And that's really the goal, is to help show others how they can do that too.
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's not even about resonating with things. Sometimes guides give you information that you're not really okay with, but it's for your personal growth.
So here we see, this is in Death Valley, and this is with that big Mexican earthquake that took place on the Pacific coast at 7.6. It literally triggered a desert tsunami in Death Valley, 1,500 miles away. And you could see that, well, the water ends up sloshing on through here. And I'll just make sure the sound is off. You know, it triggered something, a memory in Cindy's mind, because we have explored this area, and Cindy has explored this area herself without me as well, as she lived in this area for decades. Interesting, to say the least, how everything is so interconnected. And you might have a tragic event that happens far, far away, 1,500 miles in this case. Now, this wasn't a tragic event, but other tragedies have happened out of the blue when there's been large earthquakes in other places.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, there is a place, I don't think it's too far away from there. It's called Titus Canyon. Many of you may have heard of it. Some may have driven through it, but it does speak of a huge tragic event where these soldiers were going through a canyon, a very, very deep canyon, and the walls were very, very high, just so high they could never ever crawl out of them. And there was a flash flood, and it came through, killed all the men and all the horses. Very, very tragic event, and it's probably triggered from something like this.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Mother Nature is very, very powerful. And so before we go to, you know who over here, let's just give you some updates, quick updates. Right now, this is Tropical Depression number 9. We were talking yesterday about this when it was an invest, and now it's looking at this moment. Of course, this is subject to change. Like it's going to end up going over the western portion of Cuba, perhaps as a Category 2 hurricane, before heading towards southwest or central Gulf Coast, Florida, over next week around Wednesday into Thursday. So we'll see. We're going to watch this because, obviously over here, this could change. And then anybody from Texas, even Mexico, over to Florida should be watching this one, because it does have the potential to be significant. Hurricane warnings issued for Atlantic Canada. Significant impacts from high winds, storm surge, heavy rainfall likely, as you see. Still, basically, hurricane strength. This is really extremely unusual, to say the least, when it's probably going to start to impact Canada. So anybody in that area, again, you want to be prepared. And I think the preparation is the thing that is hitting us more than ever in this time, as we look to what is San Francisco. And it's a city. I've never been to San Fran. I've only been through Southern California. But I know Cindy has, and she's lived in California for quite a few years in the past. And, it's kind of mind-boggling to me to see these little blocks and these little spaces. These are designated spaces where basically homeless people can go ahead and just plop all their things. And let's just listen to Gavin Newsom, he's made it pretty much no bones. He wants to run for president if 46 doesn't run. Of course, 46 seems very much like a senile old man much of the time. When he's not, he gives off an air of demonic angriness, to say the least. But of course, it depends on which version of him we're watching.
We believe fundamentally that food solves hunger, that shelters solve sleep, and that housing solves homelessness. And if we're going to solve the problem of those that are out on the streets that we define as homeless, we better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco. We believe...
How has that worked for you? This is from 2008. This is from, when the last crash happened. And this crash that's going to happen now is going to be, it's just going to absolutely dwarf that. So here you see a younger Newsom. Now he wants to run the entire country. Of course, he wants to run it, but we know who runs him. Again, part of the few, just like, Liz Truss and Macron and all the other stooges, Trudeau up in the land up the north. They say the obvious, but they do the inverse. I mean, homelessness, he wants to, in 2008, we got a plan. Food solves hunger. Yeah, well, the world is going into the Hunger Games. Everything you say, this guy says, nothing could be trusted. Nothing. But you can't trust any politicians. This is what the world has to wake up to. They're all actors. They're acting on the big stage. Some of these actors, might be good enough to go to Hollywood. Maybe some of them are too good for Hollywood.
I know, and you look at him, and I can guarantee you one thing that he was able to do, and that was probably the ability to shuffle funds into his own pockets for padding.
Absolutely. Well, his buddy to the north, Trudeau, we were looking at his monthly food bill, $12,000. He's not dining on crickets and larvae, but some people will be. This is part of their plan. It's just disgusting. These people, these politicians, sell out humanity. Totally. They sell you out. And they do it day after day after day. Look at the results. Look at California. It's never been worse. Has it ever been worse? I don't live there. Been there. Lived right on the California-Nevada border for a while. But again, when you look to what's happened, there's more homelessness than ever. There's more drugs, death, and disease, poverty, and hopelessness than ever. It's a cesspool in so many areas. This is one of the most beautiful, gifted states in the country as far as what Mother Nature has given. And it's been turned into a cesspool. It's beyond tragic. It's beyond tragic. And all the fentanyl making its way in. When we look at, so, again, look to the labels. Centers for Disease Control. Not eradication, said this before. Food and Drug Administration. Well, so after September 30th, this is from the Bank of England, and it's real. September 30th, 2022 will be the last day you can use paper 20-pound and 50-pound notes. After the 30th of September 2022, these paper notes will no longer be legal tender. So we encourage people to spend them or deposit them at their bank ahead of this date. This should be a wake-up call. We also had the Vatican calling all the money in by that same date. As you can see here, this is from MSN talking about this. This is just days away. Days away. We understand that the monetary system is the true power, as it was stated by a Rothschild himself. He doesn't care what actors are pretending to rule the country. It doesn't matter whether it's a monarch on a throne or a president. Doesn't matter. It's really the money system is what controls people. That's the real power, and they're about to change it in a way that is going to give them even more power. British pound plunges, bonds crash after government announces tax cuts. And if we look over at the financial board, it's almost all a sea of red right now. But, I personally, I would love to see every single piece of this just burnt to the ground, thrown away, because as long as this is in place, this is a form of slavery. There is such a thing as debt slavery, absolutely. Hey, don't worry. We'll put it on credit. You could pay us back. Oh, that $250 TV, by the time you pay it back, it's going to be $600 or whatever it is. This is how it works. And we can see he was talking about food and keeping people from being hungry. Well, global food supply crisis may worsen due to poor U.S. harvest. Everything is coming together at this one time. And you have so many warning bells going off. UN Food Chief warns millions are knocking on famine's door. famine, starvation, destabilization of nations. The head of the World Food Program warned over 50 million people are right on the brink of famine right now. Sharp rise in Russian food exports reported. Comes despite geopolitical tensions. Again, the illusions that are put out there. You can't trust anything that comes to you from official sources, and it still boggles my mind how people can recognize this in so many ways and still they trust some of the most official sources on certain things. So this is, a representation of Yeshua, Jesus, driving out the moneylenders from the temple. Again, the power structure in place was not serving the greater good. And that was something that the historical Yeshua, most definitely realized. The system was controlled by the enemy, the adversary of humanity. This is just a given. It's obvious. And so when the Pharisees and the Sadducees come up to him, he basically said, you don't have a clue as to what I view God as. You don't have a clue as to the true creator of this universe. Why would it be any different in this day that the mainstream religious thoughts are controlled by the adversary? I mean, that's only obvious. It should be just so blatantly obvious to people. So even things like the concept of original sin, that's something that a slave master puts into the minds of his slaves in order to keep them subservient. You screwed up. I have a perfect right to punish you. But that's not what the true Yeshua came to endorse. Quite the opposite. He came to free human minds, human hearts. And the benevolent beings don't come to just one little tribe. Again, that's so obviously egoic. Why in the world would Source, or the creator of this particular universe, only decide to come to one little tribe of people? It makes no sense. But who told you that? Well, that little tribe did, didn't they? Come on now. I mean, how gullible do you think people are? Well, ultimately, people have been very, very gullible. But you know what? There's a great awakening coming on. And this awakening won't be stopped. It's going to change everything. All of our old dogmas, our divisive dogmas, are going to leave. Because it's just going to become blatantly obvious that they've been utilized by the dark side to create division. And so ultimately we are going to come together. If you look to the Hopi prophecy, they say that these rainbow warriors of the rainbow, it's because they're going to come from every nationality, every race, every creed, every color. And it's going to be those that are affected by this energy wave in a positive sense. This is Peter Dunov, and we've done numerous videos talking about what he saw. And he's a Bulgarian mystic and much, much more. He's actually, we could say he's a Qigong master, sort of. He's a life force master. Again, whether we say like Qigong, Reiki, Pranic healing, different forms of utilizing breath, mind, and body to control the life force around us to bring us better health and a better state of being, to bring us more in harmony with the earth. He had his own form, and he was also a musician as well. And he did see a coming galactic superwave before superwave theory was even a science. He saw this decades before any of the physicists, any of the scientists came up with the possibility of a galactic superwave. but he saw it in vision because, again, this is a master. This is, again, somebody that has spent lifetimes helping humanity, not just this life that we know him. Again, this soul, like many souls, come back time and time again on a mission. They don't come to just one little tribe of people. They come and incarnate in all tribes. So when you get to these benevolent beings, of course they're going to come to all different peoples and all different parts of the world in order to help restore the balance of light on the planet and help get us ready to get out of this dark age. So he saw that we were going through the Kali Yuga, going through this dark period where we go through periodically, and he saw that there was negative energy per se, negative events that happened in this one zone, and every time we come through this zone, we lower in frequency, lower in consciousness, and he saw that we were going to be leaving this zone, and there was going to be coming from the Creator this wave that was going to basically remove the last remnants of the power structure that's on the planet. These people know their time is very, very limited. That's why they're pushing, and they cannot win. They cannot win. They are spoiled brats. They're going to try to take as many people with them to accompany them wherever they end up. And it won't be here on Earth. So this is the prophecy of Peter Dunlove. Predicts a coming superwave 39 years before superwave theory was first proposed. And he is one of our guides. He has joined us. He's going to be working with us even more closely than he has been in the past, as we were visited last night, and we've had multiple visits by him, but we're going to work a lot closer with him on other aspects as well, besides just sharing about the superwave. Hoping that he will share some more information with us regarding his particular form of energy work, as well as music and sound, and how that frequency can help heal souls and help promote spiritual growth. So really excited about that. He is a very, very benevolent being, a very, very wonderful soul.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he is. He's a very, very gentle soul. And he has a deeper understanding of the nuts and bolts of this galactic superwave. And he is going to be bringing in information that otherwise we might not have access to. But if we do have access to it, people can start to follow their path and be on their path to some kind of freedom of the soul. And that's what he wants to be a part of. Sometimes when we jump into this life, we jump in with the intention to experience a certain divine energy, or experience a certain leap in consciousness. But we don't always get to experience that here in the 3D. So it might actually happen sometime after we pass. And a lot of times these beings simply want to hang around so they can give of their divine knowledge and information to brighten our path and, really help us on our mission.
Yeah, so, Albert Einstein once said about him, the whole world is bowing to me today, but I'm bowing to Master Peter Dunlove, as he recognized just the qualities of this gentleman and what he was trying to bring to the earth. So when this wave comes, it will change us. So again, so much of what we have in the Bible is completely distorted in today's sense, and some of the things that we would get across as being foundational to the modern Christian point of view is that of original sin and redemption through the blood of Christ, when that has nothing to do with the mission of Yeshua in the first place. So that's where this distortion is. Yeshua was a teacher of consciousness, and he was getting us ready to embody the consciousness that's going to help us to transcend this Kali Yuga. And, other beings have done this as well. I and the Father are one. You could make that statement too if you understand the bigger purpose. And again, the creator of this universe does reside inside of you. Again, if God is omnipotent, omnipresent, well, it's got to be in you, and it has to be actively working through you in one way, shape, or form or another. And, again, we can go into so many of the mysteries of things, but understand that when this wave comes, it is that in a twinkling of an eye, we will all be changed. So that is the big neutralizer of the darkness, is when this super wave hits. Now, we've gotten that this is still a ways out. The big wave coming in is still a ways out. But the first rays of light from this wave are starting to hit now.
And that really kind of makes someone go, how does this information work? How do these planetary waves affect us, whether it be coming from, the cosmic sense or an actual planet? And from what I'm getting at the moment, it's something that has to come slowly, so it doesn't destroy everything suddenly, so it does not create a lot of trauma. So we're all in a space right now where we have an opportunity to allow ourselves to separate from the destructive forces without destroying ourselves in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So reprioritize yourself as much as you can if need be. Give more time to meditation, to things like yoga and Qigong. And it might seem counterintuitive in some ways. Some might feel like, whoa, what's coming? Shoot, I gotta just, spend all my time gathering food, gathering supplies, and the like. Hopefully you guys have been doing, I know most of you have been doing things in preparation for the time period that we're about to enter. And even when we know something's coming, when it does hit, it still will be a shock to the system to a degree. And the realization that many people are having right now, it can be shocking. But ultimately what we're heading to is something much, much more beautiful than what we've been experiencing on this planet during our lives. Night and day, night and day. And again, this is a temporary ride. And so many of us are here to just help with the transition. And so beings like him, he's done this multiple times, as have many. And it's interesting too, I just wanted to share, a little piece of this. This was an ad for studying his works and also works of other beings. And it's interesting to see, how you can blend from different traditions the good and create something unique. That's beautiful. I mean, we are all co-creators. So we don't have to just completely take on some other system, whatever system that is, and just say, okay, I am this now. Because some people have said, I've seen comments, so what are you guys? I mean, those are all labels. We're us. Mm-hmm, yeah. We're beyond labels. If you're true to yourself, you're going to be beyond a label as well, because you're going to be ever evolving. Life on the other side, and really there is no other side because it's going on the same time now. We just can't quite perceive it in its totality. And that's kind of the nature of things, because that lends to having a deeper experience while we're in this body. But, to quote a biblical phrase, lo, I will tell you a secret, we shall not all die, but we shall be changed. But you need to prepare for that change, because just like so many people are dropping right now from sad circumstances, and just like that, I mean, in the middle of a tennis stroke, boom. In the middle of a basketball game, boom. When this positive energy comes sweeping through too, if we have too many stored up traumas, the same sort of thing can happen in a natural way because we haven't worked to purge the traumas. We haven't released the dark negative energies. In acupuncture and Taoist philosophy, emotions are the source of all the natural disease that we see is really emotionally based. Of course, we can be exposed to toxins, radiation, all sorts of poisons. That's slightly different. But as far as, the things that fester and cause disease, typically they're of an emotional nature. We are at the end of a cycle. This is the end of a cycle. So all this has to be purged. So ultimately, we need to be really focusing on that because that's what's going to allow us to transition in a much easier nature to the new way of being. If you hold on to the things that are weighting you down, it's going to be a much more painful transition. It's going to be one that's going to be a lot more challenging. So what did he do in his life to lift himself up? Well, he did do his breath work, his meditative work. He did do a lot of music because it was something that was a passion for him. And again, be creative. Find what it is. It might be pottery. It might be writing. It might be music. It could be anything. It could be woodworking. It might be making birdhouses. It could be gardening, absolutely. Anything that brings you peace is something to be cultivated. Just getting out in nature, camping, hiking, things like that. But taking in fresh air, fresh water, and sunshine. One of the things that most people are deficient in right now is D3. And a lot of us just don't get enough exposure to the sun. And that is also key for activating the pineal gland.
As we sit with his energy, the one thing that comes through is the understanding that there is a place for the pain and there is a place for the emotional processes to get difficult. But keeping in mind, really, really holding in your heart that pain and darkness is the greatest teacher. And I have heard this from other divine guides, divine entities. They have a way of taking the darkness and embracing it and knowing with love in their heart that this is going to change and morph and help someone evolve. So if you are going through pain, please understand that this is an evolution and there's only good can come of it. But we need to embrace it and understand that not all of these things are bad. Think of a diamond and how much pressure that diamond is under for how long. And then what do we see when we open up that which is covering that diamond? We see the most bright, brilliant entity that you could ever imagine, with many different facets, many different perspectives. And that's what we're doing in this life. We are turning into diamonds. We are having different perceptions, can't even talk. His energy is really, really powerful and beautiful. It's a lot like Yeshua. But he does want me to convey that if you are having a difficult time, this is in the process of change and it's okay.
Absolutely. Go within. As this quote's attributed to him. Do not look for happiness outside yourself. The awakened seek happiness inside. And this is again something that we might find in the Tao Te Ching. We might find it in the Vedas. When you look to what we see here is a four-armed, or actually much more armed than that. I think we're showing 6 here. Lady on top of a lion, sometimes on top of a tiger. This is the Durga. And what we've gotten from the guides is the Durga energy is coming, and it's coming to the planet. What is the Durga energy, you may ask, as you see Here it looks like she is driving a spear into the side of this being. That looks very, very warlike. Yes, in some ways, what it is that it's that divine mother protective energy that will defend her children at any cost. This is the wave of energy that is also coming on the planet, because the mother is no longer going to tolerate the destruction of her children. And this is the energy that the controllers fear the most, because this energy comes with the weight. This energy is what is coming in with this energy wave right now. And it's going to awaken those forces, those levels of consciousness within people that have not been able to process what is truly going on to this point. There's a lot of cognitive denial going on, I think, in humanity right now as to what has just transpired. A lot of humanity just can't truly grasp the nature of what's happened on the planet. And when that does sink in, then watch out.
Mm-hmm. This is an energy that, as moms or anyone with something that you care for and love deeply, whether it be one of your pets, definitely, of course, your children, knowing that this energy is coming, and when it overtakes you, there's no denying this energy and what it's capable of. And that energy is of a mom protecting her cubs, a mom protecting her babies. Any mom that's in a place where she's protecting her little ones, that's a force there's no way anything or anyone can challenge it. It will overtake and it will succeed. So this energy coming in very small spurts to begin with can be a little bit painful, because we have to let go of that which no longer serves us. If we are holding on to it, there might be a purpose, and until that purpose is reached, then we don't let go. So it's really important, I think, to understand that we're not broken. We are here being molded.
Absolutely. And, this story I've brought up in numerous videos as well. Whenever the guides talk about what we get in our scriptures from various sources, they refer to them as stories. They're allegories. They're to be meditated and pondered on so we can see the greater truths that lie within them, not necessarily to be taken literally. But in this story, there are these two demonic beings who are let loose upon the planet, and they are destroying everything in their path. And so people petition the gods, again, the Devic energies. The Devas are the benevolent beings. The Asuras are the more in service to self demonic beings. Well, people petition the Devas to come for help, and different Devas try to stop these demonic beings, and they're not able to stop them because they've been given a boon. A boon is like a blessing, and sometimes even demonic entities can get a boon, so to speak, from very, very high creators. And so what happens is, ultimately, none of the individual deities can totally conquer this demonic duo. And so what happens is all of the goddess energies combine and come together in the form of Durga, and ultimately that Durga energy manifests into something that is very, very destructive and yet cleansing at the same time. But yet, if you guys are familiar with Kali eventually emerges from Durga, and Kali can be very, very demonic looking, to say the least. Kali is something to be very feared, and at least to be taken with great respect, yes, and at a distance, because again, this type of energy can destroy everything, and that's the lesson from it, because ultimately Shiva has to lie down in front of Kali to block her way because she was destroying all the demons, and then the danger was there that she could destroy everything. So if we put it into perspective, modern perspective, with what we know happens in cycles, you could say this Mother Earth cleansing energy is going to ultimately wash it all away, like Tool says in that one song, "See You Down Arizona Bay." But going to the point where if it wasn't mitigated, wasn't stopped, there would be absolutely nothing left, because the system is going to be washed away. This is how we will look at the planet at a certain time frame, and you're going to look back and you won't see any vestiges of this dark system really out there. But, again, it's a case of a cleansing and a purging that is coming, that these dark energies fear, and the very first manifestations of this are coming in at the same time that they are going to trigger their collapse, and they are hanging the threat of global war over us. Again, they are trying to manifest the darkest, scariest possibilities in front of us so that we will lower our vibrations. Again, if they could get us to keep fighting each other, they win. They win. They could keep prolonging things. But as soon as we recognize what's really going on, and we stop looking at each other and look at them, their game is over.
I mean, that's key too, because right now they have us tricked into pointing the finger back and forth at one another and creating all of these paper tigers for people to be afraid of and people to tattle on other people with. And that trick is just about used up. We've all heard of the oldest trick in the book. Well, that's definitely one of the oldest, but I tell you what, when people start to catch on, it's like a wildfire. And that takes off, and there's no stopping it, because at that point, Mother Nature and karma has truly gotten a grip, and she's going to give her response. And karma might not always seem fair, but she is just, very, very just. So there's an action and a reaction.
So we wanted to share that with you guys. Keep putting your positive intentions out there. Again, nothing is set in stone. Every single time we go through one of these yugas, each one is totally unique. The more people we can wake up, the more people we can get putting out the positive energy, the more we can transition in a more positive nature and take control back of our planet for ourselves, and kick them off planet. They don't belong here. They do not belong here, and Ma's gonna kick them off planet sooner or later. And it's sooner is much better than later, to put it bluntly. So may you be blessed by the true creator of the universe, and may you share and help to enlighten this planet, and may we shed ourselves of these dark energies that are upon us. Much love. Namaste.
Namaste.